Hi, it's Kristen, and we're doing another instalment of the reading series where I read a series. So, this time round, I am going to read the His Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. I'm going to do the original trilogy. I know in the past few years there have been prequels, I think, that have come out, but I'm doing the original His Dark Materials. I'm doing this because one, it's a book series I've wanted to read for years. I've always had the intention of reading it, but have just never picked it up. But in the beginning of December, the BBC show, His Dark Materials, is coming to an end. They're doing the third and final series, and I'm very excited. My family, well, me, my mum, and my sister love it. And my mum and my sister have both read the series, so they know what's coming. And my sister's told me she's very excited, but feels like she's gonna be heartbroken all over again. So I'm like, what the heck happens in that final book? So I want to be in the know before it happens. I want to prepare myself because I cry so easily at stuff. And I think I just want to be prepared, even if I cry reading the book, and I will inevitably cry again in the show if it is something very sad. I want to be ready for it. So, the books are Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife, and then The Amber Spyglass. I had the intention of reading these all throughout November, but it took me so long to finish the last book that I was reading because I wasn't really enjoying it, that I didn't start reading the first book until halfway through, 2/3 of the way through November. So now I have a week before the show starts airing, and I have half of this one and both of these to go. So, yeah. This one I'm not so worried about because it's the shortest, the second one. So I'm this far through this one where the gap is. That's where my bookmark is. And this one is smaller, but then this one's bigger. This is the first one. This is the third one. That's the second one. So yeah, my reading plans kind of went out the window. We will see how I get on. I also made the ridiculous decision, to start them in November, but not until like halfway, 2/3 of the way through. But also the busiest time of year at work. We have our Christmas fair at work coming up next week, and there's just so much preparation to do. And one of my colleagues recently left, so I've been covering some of the shifts that he used to do. So last week and this coming week are just ridiculously busy for me. So I sort of don't know when I'm gonna read. I have some holiday owed, so I have taken like half of my office hours each week up until the new year. I've taken as holiday just so I don't waste all that holiday and I actually have some time off. So I will read then. But in terms of the show being out the beginning of December, that doesn't leave me much time. Anyway, so a little bit over halfway through Northern Lights. This is going to be a spoilery vlog. I'm going to talk about the stuff that happens in the book. Important things. There will be spoilers. Let's do what this whole series is about first. Our main character is a girl called Lyra. This is a world that is, like, the basis of it is similar to our world in that there's London and Oxford, and the place names are like our world, but this is like a magical version of it. Every human has a companion animal called a demon. When you're young, your demon can change shapes until you sort of hit puberty, and then your demon will settle on a shape. And our story starts with Lyra eavesdropping on a conversation between the scholars at the school where she lives and her uncle, Lord Asriel. And he is doing an expedition, and he's found out something about this thing called dust, and he believes that there are other worlds, other universes, like, crossing over. He takes a photograph of the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights, and within the lights you can see another city. So he wants to do more research on that, as does a group of other characters who maybe don't have the best of intentions, and Lyra gets swept up in this story because she knows more than she should from eavesdropping, and there are lots of children in the area going missing, including her friend, and she is also wanted, and so these mysteries just get wrapped up together, and she goes on this expedition, and that's where I'm at the point where she is on this expedition, and she's actually just been kidnapped from her friends, from John Farr and Farr Decorum and Yorick, and yeah, that's where I'm at. She's separated from her friends, and it's like a precarious position they are in. Your demon is part of you in these stories, and it's like she describes her demon trying to walk away from her at one point, and it's physically painful to her, and when they reconnect, it's like she just wants to clutch her demon tight. And they've just found her and Yorick have just found a boy who had no demon. He'd been separated from his demon, and the way it's described is just heartbreaking. And so they sort of rescued the boy, and then Lyra got taken. So that's where I'm at in the story. I'm going to say something controversial. I actually think I am connecting with these books better so far because I've already seen the show.
Hello, I have 53-ish, around 50 pages left of my book. I meant to finish it last night, but I could feel myself falling asleep as I was reading. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, but I was so tired last night, and I could feel like my eyes closing and not focusing as I was trying to read, so I decided there was no way I was going to read like another 50 pages before I fell asleep. So I put it down. I thought I can finish it today, even though I'm working all day. I'm currently in my break, so I'm thinking maybe I can finish it real quick before I eat my dinner, or like as I eat my dinner maybe. I normally watch something while I eat, but maybe I'll read something. Um, yeah, I I felt really ill this morning. I woke up and yeah, was sick. But still, I had so much to do at work. I had to come in, which isn't great. But I wonder if that's also an indicator of why I was so tired last night, because I was beginning to feel unwell. But yes, I'm going to attempt to finish a noisy street outside. I'm going to attempt to finish this tonight. I think if I can at least read some of it now, just before I have dinner, then I should get home about 9:45 tonight after work. And maybe if I, can read for like a half an hour before bed or something and finish this book. So tomorrow I can start the sequel. That's my plan. I always come up with plans in these vlogs and I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do, and then I just fully don't. I'm like, I want to finish it by the next 2 days, and then I don't read for like a week. But yes, my plan, I'm gonna hold myself to it, is to finish this tonight by the time I go to bed. So the other day I finished reading Northern Lights, and then I was in a bit of a reading slump. Even though I enjoyed the book, it wasn't that the book put me in a reading slump. I think I was just in a reading slump because of life stuff. Things got a bit hectic. I didn't have time to read, and then when I did have time, I just wanted to lie in bed and watch Netflix. But anyway, I started The Subtle Knife now, which is the second book in the His Dark Materials series. I'm really excited to get into this one because this one is where a character called Will comes into it, and I love Will in the show. I think I've said before, I really like him and Lyra together, and their adventures and their interactions, so I'm excited to get into this. One thing I will say about Philip Pullman's writing that I find interesting, having watched the show, I'm sorry to keep bringing it back to the show, but that's the context I have for the story so far, predominantly. I mean, in the show there's several points that are very emotional, with like characters dying. This is spoilery. I'm pretty sure I said at the beginning this will be a spoilery vlog, but we're probably getting spoilers now. So at the end of the first series, Roger, Lyra's friend, is used by Lord Asriel to sort of like open a gateway between worlds. And in the show, it was very emotional. You had the characters crying and you saw this child die on screen. But in the book, it's like Lord Asriel's kidnapped Roger. Lyra finds him, and then the writing is like, they were reaching out their hands to try and grab each other. They were running as fast as they could, and then like ear-splitting sound went through the sky and they both fell. That's like paraphrasing. And then the focus sort of shifts to Lord Asriel and Mrs. Coulter and them having a conversation, and Lyra watching that. And then it like cuts back to Lyra, and it's like, and she was holding Roger's dead body in her arms. And I'm just like, if I hadn't watched the show and known that he dies, I would be reading that going, what? When? At what point did he actually die? I'm confused. And my sister said that there's a point in the second book where another character dies. Again, we're doing spoilers now. And I know who dies because I've seen the second series of the show. But it's when Lee Scoresby dies.
And in the show, it was so sad, and it was a very like heroic death, and it was really sad, and it was like the moment between him and his demon, and it was very emotional. And my sister was like, yeah, in the book I read it and I was like, did he just die? Is that what happened? So I'm like, Philip Pullman, is this just a thing that you do? Like, you don't go into depth with character death? Because, like, on one hand, I kind of get it. Because, like, if you have kids reading this, you maybe don't want to focus on the death. But then there's a lot of other mature themes within this book that I'm like, but if you're doing that and you're writing about that, why would you skimp out on the death? I don't know. I find it odd in the way that it's written, but Philip Pullman can write what he wants. Anyway, yeah, so on to book 2. The ending of Northern Lights is very dramatic, has lots of characters separated from one another. Lord Asriel goes off, Lyra goes off, like tries to follow him. Lee and the witches are all like still separated or missing from being blasted out the sky. Yeah, it's all very dramatic. And then book 2, I kind of love the way it starts, because you end book 1 with all that drama from characters we know and love, and then book 2 just starts with this character we've never met before, Will, in a completely separate world, and just like throws you right into the drama of he is running away from someone, you don't know why, you don't know exactly who they are. But yeah, I'm now like just over 50 pages in. Will and Lyra have met. We've had a little chapter with the witches, which I love. I think the witches are such interesting characters and such an interesting character concept. I love reading about them. But yeah, so I'm 50 or so pages into this. This book is slightly shorter than the last book, only slightly, only by like 60 pages or so. But I'm hoping I can read it quite quickly. Yeah. I don't know if I've updated this. I said that the show was starting again at the beginning of December, and that was the whole reason I wanted to read the series, so I'd read the series before I watched the final series of the show. I was mistaken, because we've passed the air date of what I thought the air date was. I thought it was airing on the 5th of December. It's not. It's the 18th of December, which is good because I'm still on book 2 and we've just passed the 5th of December. And I was like, oh, we're going to have to record it and not watch it as it airs so I can finish the books first. But no, I'm hoping now I will be able to read the books before the show comes out, because I've got like 2 weeks still. I don't know why I thought it was the 5th of December, because it's not. I don't know where I got that date from. But yes, anyway, that's my update. I will update you when I'm further into this. I am being lit by a little lamp and then by the light of my laptop, so please excuse the shadow. I am now over halfway through this, just a little bit over halfway. Very much enjoying it. Will and Lyra together are just a lot of fun. They have a very what's the word I'm looking for? Somewhat tense relationship. They both like each other, I think. Not like romantically, they're all kids. But I think they both quite like each other as people. And
Lyra's sort of all in on trusting him, but Will doesn't necessarily trust her, but he wants to, and they sort of bicker but also have this just willingness to help each other, which I think is very sweet. And we've now met isn't the right word, it's object. We've now met the subtle knife. They've come across the subtle knife, which is the object that can slice through worlds. So I think we're going to get more world jumping. I think it's really interesting now that we have the different worlds, and seeing the characters' reactions to each world, because Lyra is used to her version of Oxford and the world that she knows, and she goes into Will's world, which is our world, and she's like baffled by some stuff, like a lot of technology, and how there are carriages that can go really fast and are cars, and how some things are the same, some locations and places and layouts are the same, but some are different, or where she would walk and be like, I know this building here, and the building next to it in my world is this thing, but that just doesn't exist in Will's world. So yeah, finding that very a fun dynamic amongst all the sort of heavy life and death consequences. Yeah, there's a lot of world building and a lot of sort of deep philosophical questioning and talking about just like existence and worlds and gods and angels and things, which, considering so many people just refer to this series as like a kids series, not that kids series can't be like complex and thoughtful, but I think people maybe miss out on a lot of the like heavier, more nuanced conversations that are had in here. And like, if you do consider it a kids series, it's one where I think Philip Pullman's very much not talking down to his readers. He's having these big conversations and talking about stuff like dark matter and the impacts of religion and stuff like that. In very grand ways, and we have characters learning about these things, adults and children, and they're all sharing their perspectives and their knowledge, so it's not just like kids being dismissed or being explained too heavily or like skimmed over in a you wouldn't really understand this kind of way. So I'm very much appreciating the writing in this. Little over halfway to go, hoping I can finish it soon, and I will update you when I'm further into the story, developments have happened, I'll let you know. I am at work where I have terrible lighting and terrible sound. I just finished reading The Subtle Knife. I read 164 pages yesterday, which doesn't seem like a lot, but kind of is for me. And it just goes to show that if I actually sit down and just read, I can read quite a lot. in a day. I stopped last night with about 50 pages left because I had to be up early this morning to come to work. And it was like 11:15, and I was like, with my like average reading speed of about a page a minute, I was like, that takes me at least till midnight, if not a bit longer. So I decided to stop where I was. But when I got up this morning, I got ready really quickly and I read a couple of pages before I left for work. And then between my sessions at work today, I do the afternoon session and an evening session, and I get like an hour and a half between them to have dinner and stuff. So I finished my book and then had dinner. I really liked this one. I really liked it. I just sat in the office and teared up because I got to like moments with Will reuniting with family, and Lee Scoresby being an absolute hero. Yeah, so got all emotional sat at my desk. But now I finished this, I can go on to the last book, which I think is called The Amber Spyglass. It's a bigger book than either of the previous two. So I have it physically, but I've also got it on loan on audiobook from my library. Just because I thought there are moments when I'm going to be like walking home from work in the next few days, and I normally listen to music or a podcast or something as I walk home, but it's a good like 50-minute walk. So I thought in that time and very early in the morning, when I'm in the office by myself, and other than answering the phone if it rings, I don't really need to be focusing on anything other than like easy admin work. I could listen to audiobook instead of music or podcast. As it's a bigger book, maybe listening to some of it on audio would help me get through it quicker, because the show starts on Sunday. I don't think I'm going to finish the book before the show starts, so I think we're going to have to record the first episode at least, so I can finish the book. But yeah, really enjoyed Subtle Knife. My sisters told me that the third book made her very emotional. She also told me another reason I think audiobook would be good. She told me that it took her a while to get through like the first half of the Amber Spyglass, but when she got to the halfway point, when everything was like really kicking off and it was very action packed and she just wanted to know what was going to happen, that she like flew through the last half. I mean, this one ended on quite the cliffhanger. The kids are separated. That makes me sad because I love them so much. And Will is in a very precarious position, as is Lyra, although we don't know exactly what's happened to Lyra at this point. But yeah, I love the kids so much. I love their friendship. There was like a really sweet point in the book where Lyra is seemingly asleep and Will is struggling to get to sleep, and Pantaleimon is awake, and Will says that he's worried that he's gonna like die and he's scared, and Pantaleon says that Lyra thinks that Will is like the bravest person she's ever known, and just as brave as Yorick, the armoured bear. And Will says he doesn't feel brave, but he will be brave if Lyra thinks that he's brave, and that he thinks that Lyra is brave, and that he also thinks that she's the best friend he's ever had. And Pantaleimon says, Lyra feels the same way about you. And it just... it makes my heart hurt. I love them so much. And then the way that Lee talks about Lyra is also really touching. And he says that he never had children, but if he had a daughter, he would hope that she would be like Lyra, and that he thinks of Lyra as a daughter. And all he wants in like his last dealings with people, all he does is try to secure Lyra's safety. And it just makes me real sad. It just makes me real emotional. I'm sorry if the camera's shaky. I'm holding it in my hand and I'm freezing cold. So I am physically chilly. That's why I have my coat on indoors. Yeah. Update you later. I started the Amber Spyglass. I started a couple of days ago. There's a full cast audiobook on my library app. So I downloaded that and started listening to it. And yeah, in a day where without it I would have read maybe like 30 pages, I ended up reading nearly 100 because I was able to have the audiobook playing while I was just doing other stuff. Because yeah, got work, walking places, and then just like general life stuff like tidying my house after Christmas and stuff like that. So my goal now is to finish it by the end of the week so that I'll have read all the series in November, December of this year and have them all read by the end of the year. So I've been flitting between physically reading this and listening to it on audiobook. Mostly been listening to it on audiobook. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. The audiobook's great. It's yeah, full cast, and just I love the way that each voice actor voices pretty much all the characters. There's a couple that are like slightly not how I envisioned them or like how I hear them, but for the most part they're great. I really love the actor who does Will's voice, and then I believe it's just Philip Pullman who's doing all the like actual narrative reading. He's doing a great job as well. But I'm getting towards the end now, and I just am waiting for the inevitable heartbreak. Lyra and Will are in the land of the dead now, and we're seeing characters previously who've died, and it's making me very emotional. And they've both had to make really difficult decisions. Lyra's had to, in order to travel into the world of the dead, leave Pantaleimon behind, and it's just so sad. But the relationship between Will and Lyra, I'm just obsessed with. There was a bit when they were in the land of the dead that, this is me like badly, roughly paraphrasing, but it was something like she suggests something to Will. She suggests, I think, like saving all the ghosts, and it says like Will grinned so brightly that it seemed like his smile glowed, that he was glowing, and Lyra felt something in her shift, but without Pantaleimon she couldn't work out exactly what she was feeling.
but it was almost as if her heart found another way to beat. And I was just like, that's such beautiful writing for this relationship between these two little kids. But oh, I love them so much. I love all the characters. It's such a fun, fantastical series, but with like a lot of added stuff to it. It's not just like defeating the bad guy or like stuff, but it's just, you know, talking about theology and the creation of the world and let's kill God. Sure. But oh, it's so good. I'm enjoying it so much, and I was really hesitant about reading the audiobook because I read the first two completely physically, and I was like, am I ruining my experience? But the audiobook is so good. It's the one I think they did for the 20th anniversary of the book. So if you come across those, I would recommend. But I am, occasionally dipping in physically with this. But I'm hoping to finish this today. So good. I'm not ready for the heartbreak. So about a week ago, I finished reading The Amber Spyglass. I meant to do this update sooner, but at the same time I quite liked sitting with my thoughts on the series as a whole. I thought this was a great last book to the series. I didn't update as much, I feel like, during the actual reading of this, because once I got into the second half, I was just reading, wanting to listen to the story. Mostly listened to it in like one afternoon on audiobook. But when I got to the final chapter, I did both. I listened to it and read along, just because I was so involved. I always knew that I wanted to at least read the final chapter physically, but at that point I was so into the audiobook, really liking how the narrators and each character thought they were doing a great job. I really liked what they were doing with the storytelling and the emoting and stuff, that I wanted to keep listening, so I thought I'd read along as well. It was great. It was so emotional. I was just listening to the audiobook before the final chapter, as we're like amping up for the final chapter. I was listening to the audiobook while playing like games on my laptop and my phone, and just was like playing Tetris and actively crying, which felt very odd. But yeah, so then final chapter, I put everything else down, picked up the book, experienced it all. It was so emotional. When my sister said I was going to cry, she was right. I cry so easily at anything, so like what happens in the end is just so sad. It really got me. I will say quite a big thing happens, and I can't exactly garner exactly where it is physically in the book because I listened to that part in audio, but I would say it happens probably around here, maybe a bit even before that. Like a really big thing happens that sort of feels like it should be the climax to the story, but then you still have all of this. And so in parts I felt like not the very end chapter, but like some of the chapters preceding the end, I felt dragged a little bit, but I still enjoyed the book as a whole, and I thought the ending was very emotional. You have this big sort of action thing that happens, and then the next few chapters are very like not uneventful, but very like calm feeling. and sort of you just go back to like, oh, this is what these characters are doing day to day, or finding this new place and seeing what everything's about and meeting up with other characters and just letting them all know what's been going on and stuff like that, until you get to the very final emotional, heartbreaking proper finale. So yeah, the bit in between sort of felt like it was just a little bit too long. Like, I still think it was quite good to have like a big action climax, have a bit of a downbeat, and then have a big emotional climax. I think that worked, but I think the calm before the emotional turmoil just was like a little bit longer than it needed to be, perhaps, considering like how big this book is. But overall, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good end to the series, even though it broke my heart. So yeah, that's me done with the series. I read them all so close together I can't even decide which were like favourites or like which I rank higher than the others. I gave them all 4 stars. Really enjoyed them all. I think maybe the first one's my least favourite just because the second and third books have Will in them as a character, and I love him. He's such a sweet boy, but also can like go off on one if you are against him, if you threaten him, if you threaten Lyra. That boy is ready to fight, but he also doesn't want to fight. Yeah, I love him as a character so much that I feel like I have to prefer the books that he's in. But yeah, I still gave the first one 4 stars, but it probably ranks lowest if I were to rank them. And then I really don't know between these two, because this one I think I got more swept up in, perhaps. Also, it's difficult because I read both of these entirely physically, and then I read this one majority on audiobook. So it's like, if I'd listened to all of them on audiobook or all of them completely physically, would I have different opinions? I don't know. But overall, a cracking, solid 4-star series. And now I'm done with them, I can watch the final series of the show, which I'm honestly like scared to do now, because I don't think I can visually watch that ending and not be sobbing. So I need to emotionally amp myself up to watch that series. But my goodness, what a series. I know that there's like a prequel series, I think, of these. I have no idea what they're about, but I think I'm interested to look into them, see what they're about, and if it sounds interesting, see what they're like, because I do like Philip Pullman's writing. But yeah, I'm done with these books. What a great time. Yeah, let me know if you read this series, if you've watched the adaptation. Let me know your thoughts below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one. Bye. Just super quick, thought I'd jump in to say that last night was the final episode of the His Dark Material series. I thought I'd do a little update on the series, the TV series, as the whole point of this vlog was me reading the books before I watched the show. I managed to finish the books, I think, once the first couple of episodes had aired of the third series, so I recorded those, finished the book, and then eventually my mum and I got round to watching them together. But last night in the UK was the final episode. It was so good. It was heartbreaking, much like the book. The penultimate episode the previous week was brilliant as well. That centered a lot on Lord Asriel and Mrs. Coulter, and James McAvoy and Ruth Wilson gave just wonderful performances. Like, if they don't get nominated for like British TV awards, I wouldn't understand. And that sort of wrapped up their storyline the previous week. And then, yeah, last night was the final episode where everything gets wrapped up between Will and Lyra. And it was so well acted by the young actors. I was just crying throughout like the second half of the episode. But yeah, just wanted to come on and say that, like, I think the TV series lived up to the book and still really emotionally affected me. And yeah, I would just generally really recommend the books and the show both. I think they both tell the overall story that Philip Pullman told very well. So yeah, I loved the books and the show. A great but heartbreaking result. So yeah, this is now the end of the vlog. Thank you for watching.